The main component of thimerosal is ethyl mercury. Thimerosal is used as a preservative in the vaccines. Not so much anymore, but back in the 90s. And the reason why they saw such a spike in the 90s is because they added a lot more vaccines, like the Hep B and the Hib. Prior to that, the mercury load component in all the vaccines culminated together did not spike the autism rates. What really did is when they started adding all these more vaccines. I mean, I'm sure you've been looking at some of these vaccine schedules your children are going to be getting. We didn't get that when we were kids. You know, this is a lot. There's a lot out there. Thimerosal is ethyl mercury. It's different than methyl mercury, which is found in fish. It's like a cousin of it. It has an extra molecule, but they act very much the same. There were no FDA trials on thimerosal because it was chemically developed in the 1920s and grandfathered in by the FDA, so it slipped by. In the 1970s, thimerosal was identified as a neurotoxic in Europe and banned from all their vaccines and other uses, but it continued here. The FDA evaluates the methylmercury in the adults. Now, what did I say was thimerosal? Ethyl mercury, right? They looked at methylmercury. They looked at fish. They looked at organic ways of getting it in. Eating. I'm sure you've heard all about the tuna. Okay, this is what they looked at. They didn't look at the ethyl mercury. So some of the studies that you heard about were based on the methyl mercury, not the ethyl mercury. A little different. Some oversights of the study: the tuna, or any other ways that the mother's taking it in addition to the vaccines this child's already going to have. This kid's born with a lot of mercury in his system anyway. Found, and this is all my own research, by the way. So I definitely encourage you to go out and come to your own decision on the vaccines. But I was forced to research this because it affected me personally. But the placenta acts as almost like a screen, like a nurse. I want to say a liver. So it's going to push all the toxins towards your baby. So after years of eating tuna and slowly just building on the mercury in your system, when you get pregnant, it's going to go to the baby. So the baby's already being born with a load. And now you're going to put vaccines on him. So that's what I'm saying. The study didn't look at the methylmercury and the ethyl mercury combined. So it also didn't look at the susceptibility. They tested adults, not babies. And I wrote down BMI, body mass index. Is anybody familiar with that? Mm-hmm. So little ones that are getting these vaccines is quite different than a 150-pound adult. So those are some of the short findings, the pitfalls of the study. And then this was the biggest pitfall of the study, is that they identified a safe parameter of mercury as 0.1 micrograms of Hg is mercury per kilogram per day. Okay? Now these kids are not getting it in small, even doses, 365 days a year. They're going to go to the pediatrician one day and get 4 vaccines. That's a load. That's a toxic load of mercury. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's the drawback of the study. There was a popular study that came out. Yeah. I know, I read it. It came out like about 5 years ago that pretty much said that there was no connection, that the amount of ethyl mercury, the thimerosal vaccines were not toxic. That's what they were talking about, if you spread it out. But realistically, I mean, you don't bring your kid to the pediatrician, every other month. They do it all at once, and they have combination vaccines and everything. And they do it for convenience. And so what you're looking at is a huge amount of mercury in one day, in that little body that already has mercury in it. Now the good news of this is that a lot of thimerosal has been banned from vaccines after studying kids like my kids. They found that, they can't continue with this. And they followed, like, in Europe's footsteps, and they've gotten rid of it. They'll label it thimerosal free. There'll be a little asterisk right next to it. And if you follow that down, it says, still contains thimerosal, but less than the suggested rate. And it is significantly less. It is much safer today. But just kind of keep that in mind when your baby's getting a lot of vaccines in one day. It's okay to say, you know what? Yeah, I want this vaccine, but let's do them all together.
You can space them out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Because we asked our pediatrician.
Yeah.
And they said, well, yeah, but it's a scheduling nightmare. I said, I don't really care. That wasn't my question.
It's inconvenient for them.
Right.
Right. But you asked.